There is a moment in football when a scoreboard tells one story and the mood in the stadium tells a completely different one. In Atlanta, on the night of July 7, 2026, that gap between the numbers and the feeling in the room became the biggest talking point of the entire tournament. Argentina had won. Argentina was through to the quarterfinals, and yet within minutes of the final whistle, almost nobody was talking about the result. They were talking about a goal that vanished from the scoreboard, a review that reached back 100 yards, and a question that would not go away. Had football's biggest stage just protected its biggest star? That question is the reason this match refuses to fade from the conversation. Not because Egypt lost. Underdogs lose to champions all the time, and nobody remembers the specific minute it happened. This match is different because of how it ended, and because of what the officiating decisions looked like when placed side by side. A team ranked 29th in the world had taken the reigning champions to the brink, and then watched the margins of the game tilt in ways that felt, to millions of viewers, too convenient to be coincidence. The big question. So here is the question this story has to answer honestly. Was Argentina versus Egypt simply a dramatic, chaotic football match that swung on genuine refereeing judgment calls? Or did it expose something deeper about how football's biggest stage handles its most commercially important players when the video review system is put to the test? The answer, as with most stories in this sport, is not as simple as either side wants it to be. To understand why this match detonated the way it did, you have to understand what each side was carrying into it. Argentina arrived as defending champions, built around a 39-year-old Lionel Messi, playing what almost everyone assumed was his final World Cup. He was the tournament's leading scorer heading into the round of 16, and by extension, the single most important commercial asset the competition had. Every additional match he played meant a larger global audience, more sponsorship value, and a bigger spotlight on the tournament itself. Egypt, by contrast, had clawed their way into the last 16 with nothing given to them. Ranked 29th when the competition began, they had already survived a penalty shootout against Australia, inspired by a Mohamed Salah who was managing a hamstring issue through the entire run. This was a contrast that mattered long before kickoff, a global commercial giant against a team of overachievers with nothing to lose. Event #1. The match itself started with genuine chaos. Egypt scored inside the first 15 minutes through center-back Yasser Ibrahim, silencing the stadium and marking the first time Argentina had trailed in a World Cup match since their opening game defeat to Saudi Arabia in 2022. 5 minutes later came the first flashpoint. Nicolas Tagliafico went down inside the Egyptian box, and the referee awarded a penalty that Egyptian players disputed immediately. Observers online quickly connected the decision to a statistic that has followed Argentina for years. Since the start of the 2022 tournament, they had been awarded 8 penalties across just 12 World Cup matches. Critics point to that number as evidence of a pattern, but the conspiracy theory ran into an immediate problem. Egyptian goalkeeper Mostafa Shenawi saved Messi's penalty, making him the first player in World Cup history to miss from the spot twice in a single tournament. Why it matters this is where the story becomes genuinely complicated, because it undercuts the simplest version of the conspiracy narrative. If the outcome had been predetermined in Argentina's favor, nobody told Shenawi, who went on to deny Alexis McAllister and Julian Alvarez as well. The larger question this raises is not whether isolated calls looked generous to Argentina, but whether football's video review process is transparent enough for fans to trust the pattern they believe they are seeing. Event #2. 10 minutes into the second half, Egypt produced a stunning breakaway goal. A driving run from Hamdi Fathi released Mohamed Salah, who threaded Mustafa Zico in behind the Argentine defense for a composed finish. It should have put Egypt 2 goals clear with barely half an hour left. Instead, the referee was called to review a challenge from more than 100 yards away in Egypt's own defensive third, where midfielder Marwan Attia had appeared to tug Lisandro Martinez's shirt and step on his foot moments before Egypt won the ball. After a pitch-side review, the goal was disallowed. The reaction from broadcasters was immediate. Former England goalkeeper Rob Green argued live on air that a challenge this far from the eventual goal should never have fallen within the review's scope. Writing afterward, refereeing analyst Graham Scott called it an overreach of a system designed only to correct clear and obvious errors. Veteran journalist Henry Winter, while conceding it was probably correct by the letter of the law, mourned the loss of what he called one of the goals of the tournament. Wider implications. This is where the story changes from a single controversial call into something with much bigger stakes for the sport. The concern raised by pundits and Egyptian fans alike was not simply that the goal was disallowed, but that nobody could clearly explain how far back a review was allowed to reach, or why this particular passage of play received forensic treatment when so many others in the same match did not. Observers began asking the uncomfortable question directly. If the same challenge had occurred in the build-up to a Messi goal, would it have been reviewed at all? That question, more than any single decision, is what has kept this match at the center of the conversation. Event #3 Egypt did not fold after the disallowed goal. 12 minutes later, Zico scored again, and this time it counted, putting the underdogs 2-0 up with just over 10 minutes remaining. Then Argentina's class began to show. Cristian Romero headed home in the 79th minute, and 4 minutes later Messi struck from the edge of the box to level the match at 2-2, his 8th goal of the tournament. Deep into stoppage time, Salah went down inside the Argentine box appealing for a penalty. Play continued, with no video review of that incident or 2 other contested moments in the same passage. Argentina broke down the other end, and Enzo Fernandez headed home the winner in the 92nd minute. Final score, 3-2 to Argentina. Institutional analysis. The contrast between those two sequences, a review that reached back 100 yards to disallow an Egyptian goal, and no review at all for Egypt's stoppage time appeals, has raised serious questions about consistency inside the video review process. This has led some supporters to wonder aloud whether the standard for triggering a review shifts depending on which team stands to benefit. According to reports circulating after the match, a widely shared social media post claimed that across the tournament, 12 goals reviewed for fouls in the build-up had all been disallowed, while 3 goals scored after alleged fouls in the build-up were never reviewed, all 3 benefiting Argentina. That statistic did not come from an official audit, and it deserves real skepticism, since numbers assembled by fan accounts are difficult for anyone to independently verify. But its spread was not random. It resonated because it echoed earlier moments in the tournament, including a challenge by Messi on Algeria's captain that one broadcaster's officiating expert described as a potential red card offense, which went unreviewed and unpunished. Counter-argument here is why this matters for a fair account of the night. The same broadcaster's officiating expert who criticized the missed Algeria incident reached the opposite conclusion on the disallowed Egypt goal, judging the intervention correct under the laws as written, since a foul in the same phase of play that leads directly to a goal must void it regardless of distance from the eventual finish. There is also the inconvenient detail that the disallowed goal did not actually cost Egypt the lead. They scored again minutes later and led 2-0 with barely 10 minutes to play, exactly the cushion critics say they were denied. From that position, Argentina scored 3 times without a single review benefiting them directly. Argentina also outshot Egypt 19-5 and generated an expected goals figure near 3, compared to under 1 for Egypt, numbers that describe a dominant attacking performance repeatedly denied by an inspired goalkeeper, not a match engineered from a boardroom. Bigger picture. The larger question is not whether this specific match was fixed. There is no evidence of that, no whistleblower, no documentation, nothing beyond pattern recognition built from disputed calls. The larger question is why a review system built to increase confidence in officiating keeps producing moments that increase suspicion instead. When a 100-yard review disallows one team's goal and an appeal in the exact same build-up to the winning goal goes unexamined, the inconsistency itself becomes the story, regardless of whether either individual decision was technically correct. Football's biggest stage has a commercial interest in its most marketable players advancing deep into the competition, and everyone watching knows it. That reality does not prove intent, but it shapes how every close call is perceived, which is arguably a bigger problem for the sport's credibility than any single refereeing mistake. What is undeniable is what Egypt leaves this tournament with: A shootout win over Australia, a goalkeeper who denied the greatest player of his generation twice from the penalty spot, and 80 minutes in which they had the reigning champions of the world on the brink of elimination. What is also undeniable is that Argentina survived a night that could easily have ended their title defense and now moves on to face Switzerland in the quarterfinals. Somewhere between those two truths sits a review system whose decisions will be debated for as long as this sport keeps score. The laws were likely followed, the outcome still left millions of fans unconvinced, and a competition can usually survive one bad decision. What it struggles to survive is its audience no longer believing the outcome was ever genuinely in doubt. So here is the question worth sitting with. If the exact same challenge from Marwan Atiyah had happened in the build-up to a Messi goal instead of a Zico goal, do you think the outcome of that review would have been any different?